We have a very special guest this morning. Well, they're always special, but the fact that the Colonel's been in the Enid community probably less than 2 months, I guess.
37 days.
37 days, but who's counting? Our very special guest is Colonel Corey Simmons.
Sir.
Good morning.
Nice to see you.
Thank you for being with us. We appreciate that. And welcome to Good Morning Enid, live television. And we're watching every word that you say. So.
Yeah, this is a little intimidating. First things I'm noticing is that my hair is a little grayer on television than I'd like for it to be. And
but you're 15 pounds lighter.
15 pounds lighter. It's the first time that I can recall being on live TV since I was 8 years old. I won a spelling bee, so don't ask me to spell anything now, but that'll be the last time that I can remember being on live TV.
Well, Colonel, we're, first off, thank you for your service. We appreciate you being here in the studio today to be part of Good Morning Enid. And watch out for Sarah. She's got some tough questions.
I can't hardly wait.
Good morning. We're glad to have you here this morning. And you've said it right now. You're fairly new to Enid. So we definitely have a few topics to talk about this morning that are, our top priority this morning. But we want to know a little bit about you. So can you tell us a little bit about your military career and the bases where you have been?
All right, I'll be brief. I've been doing this 20 years. So I came into the Air Force in 1998. I was a graduate of Bellarmine University, where this fine physical physique you see before you used to play college basketball. The best part of that school is that I met my wife, Dawn, and if you get to meet her, you'll know why. She's the best person I know. Went from there, spent some time in Philadelphia as a recruiter, did my pilot training at Columbus Air Force Base, Mississippi. Spent 3.5 years as a FAPE doing that. Spent some time in the Pentagon twice, once as a young captain, and then later on helping the Air Force build the budget for 3 years. Have 2 tours in Seattle, up at the McCord Air Force Base, where I got to fly C-17s. Best part about that is 75 countries in all 7 continents the Air Force has allowed me to put my foot on. And then one additional assignment at Scott Air Force Base, just outside of St. Louis, where I was on staff. And then my last 2 assignments previous to Dover is I got to do a fellowship at Harvard. Which is one thing I'll just mention is that I was assigned to Harvard. I was not accepted. Those are 2 very different things, which is very awesome to get to audit classes at Harvard. And then but right before I came here, I was the vice wing commander at Dover Air Force Base, which is a C-5, C-17 cargo hub, largest one on the East Coast, and most notably is the place where our fallen heroes come home, and arguably the most humbling and honorable experience I've had before I got to come to Enid. So when I drove through the gate on 9 July with the change of command on 16 July was the first time I'd ever been to Enid. This place is special. You can tell from the very beginning.
And I'm sorry we didn't have a 115-degree day to greet you there. Colonel, as commander at Vance Air Force Base, first off, tell us a little bit about your role as commander, but also the second part of the question is, what are the challenges that you face? If you could narrow it down.
Sure. Yeah. So as commander of the base, one, it's an eclectic bunch. It's not a normal Air Force base. The breadth of the type of folks who work there is different, and it's awesome. So we have about 2,500 folks on any given day that come to work at Enid, come to work at Vance, and the flavor is contractor, government civilian, airman, officer, pilot, non-pilot. It's definitely a melting pot of all things for our Air Force. And for me, it's the first touch point for somewhere between 350 to 500 pilots. Their first touch point of all things Air Force starts at Vance. So you asked me what one of my challenges is how do I put those folks on the right path? How do we introduce them to the Air Force to the point that this is the way? This is how we do things here. But as I go to sleep at night and I think about the challenge for Vance, they're going to ask us to do more than we've ever done. If you go back in history, Enid Airfield, 1941, from 41 to 45, produced 8,000 pilots. Now we think it's hard to produce 350, right? It's a totally different era. But they're going to ask us to go from 350 pilots a year to upwards of 450 and maybe even higher as we get 3, 4, 5 years out. And how do we do that with the infrastructure that we have? What different infrastructure do we need in order to produce that? and all at the same time not changing the standard. Right? When you come to Enid and you come to Vance, there's an expectation that you leave here as a world-class aviator. That's not changing. You know, we're going to continue to get after making sure that every single person that walks off this base is ready to go fly combat missions for our Air Force. That's a tremendous weight on all of our folks' shoulders. We want to make sure that we get that right every single time.
And Colonel, I have the privilege, my mother-in-law is in a retirement home in Oklahoma City, and what's fun for me is to go and have dinner with her, but there will be some gentlemen that they're in their 90s, but they went through Vance. And so they want to come over and talk to me about Enid, so it's fun. So Enid has this global impact, if you will. So
Absolutely.
I know there's a big event coming up, and
Yes.
Sarah wants to pin you down on some particulars on it.
Yes, there is. We do know that the 71st anniversary of the Air Force Ball is coming up soon. So you made it just in time to celebrate with us. Can you tell us about the time, date, location about this event?
Sure. Before I do that, I just want to just catch the why we call it what we call it. All right. So the 71st Air Force Ball, 71 years, 1947. The Air Force became its own service. It's actually when we started to name it Vance Air Force Base. So 71st Air Force Ball, that kind of makes sense. And if you look at our patch, what's our wing?
71st?
71st Flying Training Wing. So the play on words actually works for us this year, right? So it's the 71st Air Force Ball for the 71st Flying Training Wing and Vance. So it's, all that stuff kind of ties together. But to answer your question, it's September 8th. It starts, cocktail hour is at 6 o'clock. The program will start around 7. I wasn't here last year for the Air Force Ball, but everyone that had attended, the 512 people that attended last year, all raved about how grand and elegant and special that it was. And that folks, when they looked at their watch and it was 10 o'clock, they couldn't believe that they were still fully engaged in the event. And so September 8th, 6 o'clock cocktails, 7 o'clock for the program to start. It's a black tie event, and we are really hoping that we get as many people in the community as we possibly can to be there.
And we want to remind everyone that the event, the Air Force Ball, is at the Central National Bank Center, which is in downtown Enid. Colonel, you touched on the history a little bit, 70 plus years of the Air Force Ball. Here's my history question. Why the celebration from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s? Why the Air Force Ball? Is it time just to so-called relax, or is it to honor folks, or what?
So I'll say a little bit. I'll say it's an inferiority complex a little bit for our brothers and sister services. So we're a young service, right? We've only been in 71 years, right?
The Marines are 100 plus.
Well, 200 plus, 200 plus years old, and so the gallantry and history of our sister services is honestly what kind of drove the Air Force to do the same thing. Okay. It's celebrating our heritage. It's celebrating why we became in existence. Why in 1947 the president decided that we needed a separate service, that we brought separate capabilities and separate cultures to be able to get after how we fight our nation's enemies. And so it's really a way to just celebrate why we are what we are. We get the opportunity to tie our community into it. Last year was the first time we actually invited the public to the Air Force Ball. It's been an internal event where we internally celebrate. And we finally realized that there are just as many patriots outside the gates at Enid than there are inside the gates of Vance. And that there are folks who were retirees or folks that wanted to be a part of it. Why wouldn't we invite them in to have that opportunity with us? So if you're sitting at home and you want to celebrate Vance, I got a venue for you to be able to come to. And you will leave there with just as much, and you'll hear it again before I get off this stage, Vance proud. You get all you want while you're there.